You ever have those moments when you step back and you wonder who convinced you that this was going to be a good time? Well, in this case, it was me. I convinced myself that we should go to Romania and look at the curse of Vlad the Impaler. I thought it could be hilarious, booze it up in Bucharest, hit the clubs, have a few laughs, hear a scary story. But then, you end up freezing in an ancient Transylvanian forest. And no, I didn't get a Groupon for a Romanian folk dance experience. These are real witches, wielding black magic in the same place Vlad the Impaler supposedly had his head chopped off. That's cool, it's all good. I'm sure everything will be just fine. As a writer and explorer, as a citizen of the world, I've seen things that defy understanding. And sometimes, when there's no good explanation, we blame the supernatural. But the truth is, I believe in science.
Taking off?
So what happens if we bring the full light of modern science onto ancient curses? You wind up at a seance in the woods with Romanian witches. You follow a vampire hunter to his place of business. That's what happens.
They said, please, help us. Because he's not afraid of...
No, he's not.
Good luck.
You're gonna need it.
Transylvania. The name conjures it all. Dense pine, impassable, craggy cliffs, thick ground fog. This is the mythic forest of your childhood nightmare. Bran Castle. Billed as the last standing relic of a man some call Dracula. The story goes that Romania's bottomless well of tyranny, catastrophe, and overall human misery can all be traced back to one terrifying ruler and his supernatural evil.
Vlad III Basarab, better known as Vlad the Impaler, he was nicknamed Dracula, which means the son of the devil.
Ah, okay. So, have you ever heard of the curse of Vlad Tepes?
Yeah. He lost his wife, he lost his dynasty, he lost his family, and he signed a document in order to bring a curse down against his enemy, and he promised that he will return. That was his curse, and I will take revenge against those that they betrayed me. He was killed, and his body was buried in a monastery nearby Bucharest. Later on, when they opened the coffin, they never found his body, which is quite creepy.
Yeah, right.
You do start to wonder, what if he's coming back again?
So you'd be worried if you were his enemy, you might be a little nervous. Yeah.
Vlad spent much of his life constructing a fearsome persona. In some ways, his reputation was so extreme that it haunts the entire world.
So one of his tactics was to capture prisoners and then impale them. It's a wooden stick that goes into the rectum.
Gross.
They pull you up and you stay alive like 3 days.
Oh my God, 3 days.
That really terrified his enemy, the Turks. Yeah.
What are some of the other ways you would do it?
Well, setting a fire or poisoning wells.
Wow.
One, a very bad one, he captured a family, like brothers, and he boiled one of them, and then he forced the rest of the family to eat him.
He sounds like a really nice guy.
When you have your enemy at the gate all the time, you don't have time to make people love you.
Yeah, fascists always say that. Once he took power in 1448, Vlad began a lifelong battle to protect his country from invaders from all sides. Hungarians, rival nobles, but most of all, the ever-expanding, ruthless Ottoman Empire, Vlad's mortal enemy. The other kings and rulers of his time had surrendered, and they all paid tribute, but Vlad fought on, with a sheer hatred that defies description. Perhaps because the Ottomans had kidnapped him as a child, and by the time his father and brother were killed, his hatred had grown so virulent that we still make TV shows about him 600 years later.
Vlad himself, he was right here.
Yeah, right here. He touched these walls.
Amazing.
He used to capture rats and birds, take the skin off, and then impale them in a small wooden stick. And
Wow. You know, 600 years ago, there was a real person here. Vlad the Impaler. Looked out his little window. Thought about revenge.
Now this little beauty here can be yours for $7. No one ever lets a curse stand in the way of profit.
There you go.
But the truth is, we're all here because Vlad's fearsome reputation so inflamed imaginations, including an Irish writer named Bram Stoker. Bram never even visited Romania, but he used Vlad's name and legend as the basis for one of the most potent horror symbols of all time. There's no escaping the vampire in pop culture. But the question I have is pretty simple. Is the curse of Vlad real?
Tell me about this letter from Vlad Tepes.
El certifică acest document. Dacă hotărârea lui nu este respectată, toate relele de pe lume, inclusiv pedapsa divină a lui Dumnezeu, se va năpusti asupra acelui care se ocupe însă țara românească.
Kind of a cool way of punctuating requests. You know, hey man, give me a beer or I'm gonna lay your kingdom to waste and your kids are gonna rot in hell for eternity. There you go.
Do you think Vlad's curse has affected Bucharest?
Ba da, știa acestor calamități când ne referim la holeră și ciumă, însă recurența era cel puțin o dată pe generație, holeră sau ciumă. Iar punctul este cel mai important, este numit ciuma lui Caragea din 1813.
Karaja's plague, that was the prince who came after Vlad Tepes was killed.
Yes.
Bucharest is already on edge after the mythic Vlad the Impaler has cursed them for all eternity. And then, after years of devastating fires, earthquakes, wars, a ruler appointed by his sworn enemy, the Ottoman Empire, assumes power. And guess what happens next? The palace in the center of Bucharest burns to the ground. That could be a coincidence, or more likely a parting gift from the outgoing administration. But then, people start getting sick. 450 years after the Black Death, Bucharest plunges into an outbreak that must have felt like the zombie apocalypse.
What did they think caused the plague?
Oamenii asociază de o pedapsă divină.
God was punishing them, kind of like a curse, during the plague. Where did they put the bodies?
Spre 20.000 de victime, iar cadavrele au fost îngropate într-o groapă comună, în afara orașului, construit din nimic, a rămas un spațiu liber, până în secolul 20.
Can we visit those mass graves now? Can you go see where those bodies are buried? Is there a memorial or anything to look at?
Nu există un memorial, puteți să priviți de la distanță, și-au construit peste. Avem Casa Poporului.
It's totally normal. There's absolutely nothing strange or symbolic about building your parliament on top of a mass grave. But seriously, we should go down there, right?
So we're down here in what's called the Plague Catacombs. You know, just wanted to see for myself these tunnels that were stuffed with bodies during the plague outbreak. Yeah, we're not supposed to be here.
Vlad the Impaler put a written curse on his land. Years after his death, when an Ottoman-appointed prince showed up to claim the throne, all hell broke loose. And it must have felt like the ultimate confirmation of the curse. With coronavirus, people around the world have gotten a glimpse of what a scary outbreak can be like. But statistically, the majority of patients who contract the coronavirus survive. Karaja's plague was totally different. The death rate was more than 50%.
It's got to have felt like the world is ending. The psychic wound, you know, on a city, on a people, on a nation. It's something that you would never get over. And you would pass that fear along to your children.
It's almost like the sheer terror of living through that particular plague left a scar that's been passed down. Many modern Romanians see this outbreak as proof of Vlad's curse. But I wonder, can we find a point where myth and science intersect? Was there something truly anomalous about Karaja's plague?
This is a mathematical model.
Okay.
It's widely used in disease ecology. So we took historical data from the Black Death, the bubonic plague.
Sure.
Would you like to see?
Yeah, please, by all means.
These are spatial representations of people dying all across the city.
Wow.
And then it burns itself out, as epidemics do, and it starts to plateau.
Okay.
So my husband and I have been working on a mathematical model of courageous plague. This was a really terrifying plague.
Wow.
Much more aggressive epidemic. Once it happens, it just, wipes through the city super quickly.
Wow.
But something else is going wrong too.
Okay.
Some people have looked at these epidemic curves and said, okay, well, there must be what we call pneumonic plagues, and that's when the disease is deep in your lungs, can spread it directly person to person.
Wow.
Then quarantine is established. So you're walking around the city where they had piles of human bodies. There's stories about them raping, stealing, even killing plague victims. Complete societal breakdown.
So all these things may have combined to make this into just a complete hellish
It's a hellish sort of end of days scenario.
Right.
It killed half the city, maybe more, but there hadn't been a plague epidemic anywhere else. As an ecologist, you say, how could that be? What was it?
Wow. Yeah. It's hard to imagine what a family losing nearly 50% of its members would feel like. Imagine your own family and pick half. The scar that would leave on a generation is something you would never get over.
Karaja's plague could have given the curse a literal grounding and an emphasis that burned it into the minds of Bucharest. But that was hundreds of years ago. Are there any lingering effects today? In the deep, dark woods outside of Bucharest, there's a place called the Witch's Pond. A place where the legacy of the curse shows surprising life. The business of witchcraft in Romania is booming, and Mihaela Minca is the reigning queen. She's a witch, and there are thousands of others just like her. How did I find her? Well, I tied a note to a raven's foot with an eye of newt and the tongue of a bat. Nah, I'm kidding. I hit her up on Instagram. I slid into her DMs.
I'm gonna add that to contacts. Why is this a special place?
Vlad Tepes a fost sacrificat aici.
He was killed.
Yeah. Cindale schicor.
They cut his head off.
Yeah. Avea pact cu diavolul. Noi suntem niște vrăjitoare foarte puternice. Trebuie să plătim diavolii cu mult sânge să ajutăm persoana respectivă.
If I wanted to curse someone or to do black magic, could I pay and you could do a bad spell to them?
Yes, her grandmother killed much people with black magic.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because
Sunt ritualuri secrete. Nu știu dacă e bine să spunem pe post, nu spunem de ce. Pe ascuns, toți vin la vrăjitoare, dar în secret.
I understand, yeah.
Că în România, diavolul umblă printre oameni. Sunt foarte mulți oameni care se sperie de magia neagră.
Mihaela and the other black magic practitioners offer their services online. $100 and an internet connection, and you can dole out a curse. Just as easily, you could be the subject of one. But the Romanians spend millions of dollars a year on health charms and hexes and love potions. It got to the point where the Romanian government attempted to tax the black market of black magic.
They're not the type of people you want to upset.
După acest bărbat,
Now, a group of angry witches in Romania is taking on the government with a unique tax protest.
The witches responded with curses. They threw poisonous mandrake into the Danube. I'm not going to say it's proof about who believes what, but we did see a marked change in the behavior of the highest levels of the Romanian government. They not only backed down, but also wore purple clothing, as purple is the color that protects from curses. In this case, black magic proved pretty effective.
So that was pretty intense. I'll say this, if Mihaela cursed you, I think you'd wonder. Her conviction was so compelling. I think you'd think about it in your dark moments. Just in case.
A curse works when people believe it works. And the prevalence of witchcraft means that a lot of folks are at least open to the idea. But how deep does it go? How dark can it get? Is there a big difference between the Western attitudes about witchcraft or the supernatural and the attitudes of multi-generational Romanians?
Ovidiu.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, how are you? Sam.
Ovidiu. Nice to meet you.
Ovidiu, nice to meet you. Yeah, thanks.
A local journalist has offered to help me get access to a small village called Merotino de Sus, where there's a man who fights the ghosts of Romanian superstition. But this is something no one in town wants exposed because there was an avalanche of blowback before. So our source is understandably wary.
We found out about this guy, Mircea Mitrică, it's his name. He doesn't want us to go at his house. He doesn't want to be seen by the neighbors. We're gonna go with him at his goat fold, you know, where he keeps the goats.
Sounds great.
I love a good goat fold.
And he's gonna talk to us there.
We'll be very low profile.
You gotta be careful how you approach. It's a total different situation in the countryside.
Is he okay doing camera work? He's okay to be filmed?
So it seems.
So, you gotta be a little careful about how we do this. This guy's gonna be real swirly. and I don't want to spook him, so keep the cameras down and just, you know, low profile, incognito, you know, real slick. That's what I want you to do. Yeah. Is that him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ce faceți, nea Mircea?
Eu așa mă duc pe
Da?
bombardieră.
Cum sunteți? Stați vă să vi-l prezint și pe Sam. El nu vorbește română.
Salut.
Mircea.
Bună, Sam. Mircea. You come with us? Is that him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Să vi-l prezint și pe Sam. El nu vorbește română. Ce faceți, nea Mircea?
Salut.
Mircea.
Bună, Sam. Mircea, you come with us?
Haideți.
Believing in giving money to witches is one thing. Even in the US, we give $2 billion a year to psychics. And everyone reads their horoscope mostly because the stakes are low. You still have to go to work when Saturn is in ascendance or the moon is in retrograde, right? But it feels like there's something darker and more profound at work here in Romania. Vlad the Impaler's curse drove its hooks into the national psyche 6 centuries ago. How dark does it get?
E nu mi-e frică. Aici e român. Când am fost la Toma Petre, la mormânt, că a venit vecina de alături, bă, hai că moare fata. Îi se moaie picioare și cade jos. Cum unchiul Petre s-a făcut moroi.
What is a moroi? Depends on which village you live in. To some, it's a simple ghost. In other places, it's much more like the familiar vampire feeding on the blood of the living. In Murch's village, the moroi is still a member of the genus and species, Undead Supernaturalis. But here, the moroi is an invisible phantom who leaves the grave and infests the body of a living relative.
How did he know it was moroi?
Yeah, they told him it's because of the moroi. And they said, please help us, you know.
Run.
Păi mergem la noapte. Și la 12 noaptea am plecat în cimitir. 3 lanterne noi ca să lumine. Ne-am dus, am dat placa la o parte, le-am dat capacul la o parte. Eu am intrat înăuntru. Eu l-am găsit cu sânge proaspăt pe partea asta. I-am desfăcut coast, am luat inima, am luat-o de acolo, am făcut focul, am omorât-o.
Does that kill the moroi?
Bă, ne-am dus acasă la ei, am făcut tot ceai cu apă, am stricurat-o și i-am dat fetei să bea. Și a doua zi, la 12, a venit pe picioare și m-a chemat că să facem un grătar.
Wow, so just 2 days and she's cured.
Fata de atunci și acum să vezi cum era, acum tot așa e mare, volumoasă. Hey!
How did you first learn about moroi?
Noi, ca copil, aveam de 5 ani, că am văzut cum a făcut omul ăla.
When I was 5, I slept with a nightlight.
El îmi spunea, bătrânul ăla, văd că ai curaj, dar să n-ai treabă cu inima, să ai inima sănătoasă.
Because he's not afraid.
No, he's not.
Yeah, I can tell. What's amazing is the elders were doing this, and Mircea was a 5-year-old, and was brave enough to go witness and be part of it. Just hard to imagine my kid going into graves and exhume the body and get the heart. But if you grew up out here, you'd have a much different understanding of death.
There's no question that Romania is still steeped in mysticism and myth. Add the curse of a vengeful Vlad to the mix, and you've got yourself an all-you-can-eat buffet of supernatural belief, sweeping the countryside. But what about here, in Bucharest. On the surface, a modern-day metropolis, bright lights, cafes, people's noses buried in virtual realities on a 5-inch screen.
Thank you.
This isn't the hangout spot for vampire hunters. There's no witches' cauldrons boiling in the kitchen. This is an entire generation of post-communist Romanians. They grew up with search engines in their pockets. Do they believe they're destined for darkness?
Hai că mai rezist. Noroc cu tine.
Adrian,
Hi.
how you doing, man?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Here with my
Hi.
friends.
I'm Maria. Nice to meet you.
Andrew.
Andrew, nice to meet you.
We're having a beer. Would you like one?
Yeah, I'll be here, sure, man. Thank you.
There you go.
Adrian and his friends were born after the fall of Ceausescu's totalitarian regime. It was one of the most oppressive in the entire Soviet Union. So what do the kids these days think about a 600-year-old legend?
Is Romania cursed?
Well, if we look at the, last 500 years,
Yeah.
the wars, the
Yeah.
plagues, fires that destroyed cities, the floods.
Yeah, it was something there, and it's sort of still affecting.
You believe it?
If you ask me, yeah, we're cursed.
People say this is in our blood.
You don't hear that every day. Unless you live in Romania. So, could the blood of modern-day Romanians hold evidence of a curse? Could there be some sort of profound truth in a toothless cliché? Could centuries of upheaval and trauma leave effects we could measure in the blood? Remember 25 minutes ago when I told you I was going to map the intersection of science and myth? Yeah, well, here comes the science part. Vlad the Impaler, the name, the reputation, so fearsome we still talk about it, 600 years later. He was the ultimate medieval fearmonger, and he fought to protect his country from enemies, domestic and foreign, by skewering tens of thousands of humans at a time. Before his death, he issued a written curse, and in the 6 centuries since, one horrible tragedy after the next has been blamed on Vlad's infamous letter. So I wonder, could a curse somehow manifest in the people? What I mean is, could it be hiding in their DNA?
This idea that you're talking about is a psychological theory referred to as transgenerational trauma.
Transgenerational trauma.
And it's basically the idea that the generation that experiences the trauma can pass it on to future generations. There would be some kind of long-term effect.
Right, so just massive trauma can change your genes.
Right, and the effects can be multi-generational. Transgenerational trauma has been documented in children of Holocaust survivors or the descendants of slaves and in Native Americans, survivors of famine. Their offspring, many years later, were shown to have increased obesity, schizophrenia, diabetes, showing that there was a transgenerational trauma altered by epigenetics.
Right. Wow.
Epigenetics is basically the study of how genes are turned on or off. It involves chemical modifications to DNA and the proteins associated with DNA. And it responds to both internal stimuli and external stimuli.
So you're saying like environmental factors can change your DNA?
Yeah, but there has to be some pretty, long-lasting trauma that would have enough time for the body to reprogram itself.
So for decades, we thought we were stuck with the genes we were born with. And now, you're telling me that genes can change due to stress? Sounds like we're gonna have to change some textbooks.
So I was in Romania and I started to wonder if an area had a history of like terrible trauma, it went back into the Middle Ages, just horrible thing after horrible thing, living in constant fear. Could there be something you'd see in the present day people?
Yes. And it could be positive, right? So far, we're only talking about negative predisposition, but maybe you have a good predisposition.
So this theory of mine, this idea that a country that's had hundreds of years of trauma, the people who live there would be more resilient to trauma, is feasible.
Right, and that could be an epigenetic alteration of stress genes. There's no question what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
It's how I live my life.
For an epigenetic alteration to occur in their stress genes, Romanians would have to be subject to continuous trauma throughout their history. But have they? Look at the map. Romania is consistently caught in a vice between rival powers. Between Europe and the Mongols, between the Ottoman Turks and the Christian nation, all the way up to Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union and the fall of the Iron Curtain. So is there any evidence that Romania's past has led to some kind of resilience or survival advantage? What do the locals think?
I was 13 when we had the so-called revolution. It was not easy to get food. We had to manage, but
it's in your blood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ți-a zicea, eu cu asta?
Nu vrei ciorbă?
Îmi place mult șobolul.
Oamenii nu sunt prea curajoși. Oamenii nu se sperie de ceea ce le oferă natura. Cei când s-au încercat ea să se apere cu drujba. Nu se sperie, sunt prea curajoși ca să...
it's just one disaster after the next. But I think it makes us stronger.
A ferry disaster in 1989 is just one of the horrible events often attributed to Vlad the Impaler's curse. But this one has something pretty strange about it.
We've got a survivor of that accident, and I'm fascinated to talk to him because foreign tourists died.
There were 31 survivors, and they were all Romanian.
Only the Romanians survived. Be interesting.
Tragedy happens every day, all over the world. It hides around every corner, reminding us that our lives are more precarious than we'd like to admit. But as I've looked into the long history of Romanian tragedies sometimes attributed to Vlad the Impaler's curse, I start to wonder.
Nu se sperie de fantome, sunt prea curajoși.
People say this is in our blood.
That could be an epigenetic alteration of stress genes.
Could some Romanians have inherited a unique gift? The ability to process stress and fear better than the rest of us?
So we're here at the Danube where there was a catastrophic ferry accident in '89, and we've got a survivor of that accident, Theodore. And I'm fascinated to talk to him because foreign tourists died.
There were 31 survivors, and they were all Romanian.
Only the Romanians survived. Be interesting.
Era ceață. Târziat un pic vaporul. A plecat cu o întârziere de 10 minute către destinația, către locația Grindu. La 10 minute de la port erau niște vase mari în ancoră, cargouri. Unui vapor mare venea vasul bulgăresc în amonte. Având o forță foarte mare, n-a avut cum să evite.
You could see the boat coming and you knew what was going to happen. What went through your mind? What were you thinking about during those moments?
Și m-am gândit că dacă ne lovește, ne întoarce. Nu m-am gândit că o să ne ia pe brusc, ne răstoarne. Cam de aici ne-a luat pe noi și se înclina. Eu am văzut că se înclină vasul, am coborât pe ăla bulgăresc.
Under the hull.
Vin și m-am mutat.
Tell me about your mind. What was going through your mind?
Când e vorba de un echilibru, așa, mă stăpânesc.
Were you very scared?
Tras atenția că ceva nu este în regulă. Nu trebuia să audă așa ceva acolo.
Era frică?
Nu.
Crazy, man. Wow.
M-am gândit că nu se poate întrâmpa nimic, am fost mai calm.
Did you know anybody that didn't make it? Did you know them?
Am avut o soră de gradul 1, verișori. Toți acolo suntem cunoștinți, prieteni.
Wow. And they didn't make it.
Theodore felt no fear. He just did what he had to do to keep himself alive. But is this just a badass anecdote of a Romanian with ice-cold blood in his veins? Could his incredible survival instincts be the result of epigenetics? Now, one anecdote doesn't make a pattern. But if you keep looking, maybe you surprise yourself.
You there?
Yeah, it should be here, actually.
You ready? Let's go find it.
Yeah, sure.
Don't get hit.
We got the address for a woman named Aurelia Grigore. She lives in an old communist housing block. Ceausescu's reign of terror wasn't the only thing she survived. She's a flight attendant, and she apparently shares Theodore's knack for survival against all odds.
There you go.
Pretty sure that's a good omen.
Yeah, it should be this way.
All right. Yeah.
Da?
Aurelia, hi. Sam.
Hi.
We've heard about you and we wanted to maybe just hear some stories about the things you've been through. Is it okay? We can come in?
I finally tracked down this woman who has one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. And it's gonna blow your mind. Seriously. In Romania, people feel tragedies in their blood. And throughout their history, they've nearly drowned in it. Ever since the reign of Vlad Tepes, when he was boiling people alive and building forests out of men impaled on wooden spikes, Romania just can't seem to catch a break. But could this have caused an inadvertent strength, a unique ability to handle tragedy and trauma and survive disaster?
Only 4, it's okay.
It's great.
I was flying from Bucharest to Nouadhibou. It was a long flight, and I was pregnant with my boy.
Ah.
After a lot of hours, I don't remember how many hours, I looked at the window. I saw no light, nothing. Only the waves. I thought, it's water, we are in water.
You crash.
Yes. I saw the plane was broken.
Oh my God.
I thought, I have to choose the easiest of this, that. The first one, because of the sharks. All the sharks.
No.
Went. Yes.
There were sharks everywhere.
Yes. I don't know to swim. The other one, together with the plane. The engine is going, maybe the explosion, yes. I chose to stay with the plane.
Were you very scared?
No.
Not even a little bit scared?
No.
Why
no.
not?
I don't know.
Much like Theodore on the ferry, Aurelia describes having an almost eerie calm, when most people would panic themselves into making a bad decision. But if you're a flight attendant in a cursed land, plane crashes can come in bunches.
The second one in 1986. At the landing, it was too steep.
Too steep?
Yes,
You're smashing down.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Did you think, I can't believe it's happening again?
I thought I was black cat. If I am on board, something is going to be wrong. That's very difficult for me because my colleagues died and I'm okay. What happened?
What I think is so interesting is you were never afraid.
You have to survive, you know, and you have no time to write that. No, you have no time.
It's crazy. When you go into a stressful situation, your body floods with chemicals. The amygdala is this little almond-shaped organ and releases these stress hormones. It's fight or flight, it's adrenaline dumps, we've all heard about it. And, you know, some people don't handle it well at all. I had a friend, he got mugged, and he was trying to dial 911, and he dialed 411 over and over and over again. But we've seen that there's a Romanian strength, there's a Romanian ability to metabolize stress hormones. And maybe there's more to it. Maybe it has a genetic component.
It's sort of mind-blowing to think the trauma we experience in our lives today could have genetic implications on our grandchildren's grandchildren. But new science says that it's possible that epigenetics allows future generations to develop coping mechanisms for trauma they've never even been through. So my theory is kind of simple. Some Romanians have been both cursed and given a gift from the past, and they row against the tide of history into the future.
So cortisol is a hormone, and it's released essentially by your adrenal glands.
Right.
Once that cortisol is elevated, that's what we try to measure in looking at the stress response.
Right.
And it's all about coping, and some people cope really well. They're able to keep going.
So they've just gotten better at coping with the cortisol,
Yes.
with the stress.
Absolutely, they've gotten better at it.
So that would kind of go to my pet theory that the Romanians who've had this history of living under incredible stress with all these terrible dictatorships would have coping mechanisms, possibly.
Possibly. With the human brain, we have this remarkable ability to be able to adjust and adapt to situations. So if you think of it in that context, I think you're really onto something.
A medieval prince's desperate attempts to keep control of his kingdom led him to commit such atrocities that his reputation and name have inflamed imaginations for 600 years. A cursed country, the myth of Dracula, plagues and fires and tyranny, and a centuries-long chain of human misery. Romania is cursed, not by a vampire, but by geography and history, by a fearsome ruler. But Romanians survive and flourish in the face of catastrophe. And emerging science shows how coping with trauma can be passed down in the form of epigenetics. Could there be a connection? I can't say for sure. From where I'm sitting, Vlad the Impaler did curse Romania. And the proof is written in blood.